Hello, everybody. It is Connor here, and we are back with your reaction to Jesse Marsch's press conference. Yes, this is something that we've introduced to the channel over the past sort of month. You guys are absolutely loving it, and it gives you a little bit of my take on Jesse's take, really. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to go through today. A few massive boosts for Leeds United, a few big boosts as well for Wolverhampton Wanderers going into this game. But what have we learned from both press conferences? Well, Jesse Marsch wants to take the momentum. He wants to take the positivity of the Norwich City result into the Wolverhampton Wanderers game, but he understands the task at hand. And we're going to get into that, but I thought it was quite interesting listening to some of Jesse's words on Bruno Lage's Wolverhampton Wanderers, who've been absolutely fantastic this season. On the comparative there, Bruno Lage has waxed lyrical about Leeds' forefront players. They were unnamed, but the forefront players he is a massive admirer of, and he's watched them for a while. As well, he says that he understands the task that's coming. He doesn't think it's going to be a hugely different Leeds to what it was last time out, and that he was hugely frustrated at his Wolverhampton team last time out against Leeds United at the 1-1 game at Ellen Road. But he understands how difficult of a game this could be for Wolverhampton Wanderers. So I think it's going to be a tough game for both sides. But let's get into exactly what was being spoken about, shall we? So Leeds Live, make sure you go check it out, everybody. It's a fantastic source for all your news, of course. So it was interesting. Jesse was essentially speaking about the under-23s, which was a big positive. A lot of stuff here on him having to prioritise and him obviously not having that much time to focus on the under-23s, but he was talking specifically about Archie Gray, Jack Jenkins. He was speaking as well about Crysencio Somerville and the impact that those guys have had, and he's managed to speak to them as well, which has been a massive positive. But I think the big thing out of this press conference, what I figured was that Jesse's just not had enough time to get everything absolutely spot on. And I think a lot of people are expecting too much of him too soon. He's only been in a short while. He's not going to be able to get his exact imprint on this Leeds United under-23 setup, never mind the first team. But you could see certain specific things of the Jesse Marsch way within that 23s game the other night. Just the cues, just the triggers, just the moments that we've seen a little bit in the first team over the past 2 to 3 weeks. That's definitely something to keep an eye on, but you expect that to be developing. Jesse also mentioned that he wants the 23, to play a very engaging way and something that's similar to what they see with the first team there. So he spoke about Archie Gray as well. He's got a lot of good qualities to be a strong player in the middle of the field. He loves training. He has a lot of strong qualities, yada yada, all that jargon. So yeah, great stuff. I thought it was interesting in terms of what he was talking about with here as well. He's spoken about the staff in and behind. And the reason I wanted to pick this up is because he's actually not got that many people with him at this moment in time. Jesse Marsch, of course, he's got his assistant manager, Schmeier. He's got a couple of others as well in and around him. But Mark Jackson's been promoted. He's heavily featuring. He's got an analysts as well who have been there as part of the previous manager's cohort of staff in terms of the players who are able to gather data for Marcelo Bielsa. So he's not been able to drip feed his staff, the players the people that he wants in and behind the scenes within his setup, which is going to have to come in time. So he is really disjointed, and in terms of the setup. And he mentioned that here, Jesse did. We're cranking every day. We're all probably doing 2-3 more jobs than we should be, which probably is making reference to the fact that he's not able to get his staffing in around the place to help him out. I haven't even had enough time to think about how to build things from now. Once we get to the FIFA break, we'll be able to take a bit of a pause, and then we'll play once every week, and then we'll have a little bit more to really sort everything out and more of what things need to look like. But what we're managing, I think, has been very effective, and I think it's clear to add. It's important that he adds that at the end because that comment was a little bit worrying, to be quite honest with you. But he said up here, he said we will add the staff eventually. So yeah, he spoke about the Joe Gelhardt moment as well. Immediate jubilation because the moment was tense, and all this sort of good stuff. How long does it come down from a moment like this? And I thought the interesting bit was when he spoke about the transition between the Villa defeat and the drama against Norwich. He essentially said that he didn't love it, but he liked the challenge of coming back to, being the adversity that stood in his way after the Villa game. He had to come back, devise a game plan for Norwich, really go at it again and see what happens. And that was really fascinating. Something I saw a little bit earlier on how Norwich could have set up for that game is something that I'm going to get onto. And that's probably something that Wolves are going to deploy in terms of the transitions. And we'll get onto that statistical part in just a little bit. But Jesse definitely devised a certain game plan for Norwich. I think we're understanding now that he does have certain game plans for certain opponents, as does Bruno Lage at Wolves. He's been well renowned already, Bruno Lage, for developing certain game plans for certain opponents. Sometimes you can get teams in the Premier League having block strategies and block tactical plans for certain teams, and I think that's where Marcelo Bielsa found a lot of advantages, because you really have to tailor a specific tactical plan to a Marcelo Bielsa side. So it's good that he has that sort of that pragmatism within his arsenal. But yeah, Jesse was essentially saying that he had to devise a plan for Norwich. The plan essentially worked. They were able to strangle them. And he was talking about the XG against as well, which I thought was interesting, because he's going into the finer details. And he said that aside from the last 10 to 15 minutes, we only had a 0.5 XG against, which really means Norwich did absolutely nothing until the last 20 minutes. But everybody, football's a game of 90 minutes, isn't it? So I thought this was interesting as well. What have you learned about yourself so far? Well, I think I've had to adjust to the league quickly and what the games are like. I've had to adjust what it's like to play in our stadium. Interesting how he noted that. One thing that is nice for him, that he gets to speak English, and he likes the adaptation, understanding who our group is and what our opponents are and what the league is. I think that's the most important thing. He also spoke a lot later on the complexities of the Premier League, on the difficulties of the Premier League, and not that he's surprised, but he is staggered by the quality of the Premier League. And I think that's because in every division, even when you look at Germany and when you look at Austria, there are top teams, but I think there's then a bit of a gulf between the middle teams and the bottom teams. And that's with no disrespect. I'm hugely fond of the Bundesliga. It's probably my second favourite league, but there is a gulf. If you do watch the league continuously like I do, you will understand that. Whereas the Premier League, there is definitely a gulf, but these teams, these middle bracket teams, these below middle bracket teams, and even these teams in and around the bottom are still top teams. They are still top European outfits, and that's that's evidenced by the amount of money in the Premier League, the amount of sponsors, and the amount of managers and players and staff who are wanting to get into the Premier League. It's the best league in the world, and I think Jesse Marsch is figuring that out firsthand as we speak. So, let's have a look at something else. He spoke about as well about the players that have changed his perceptions. Not really that much there. This was interesting as well. He spoke about the Leadership Council. Now, a lot of people are probably thinking, a Leadership Council, what's all this, Connor? Well, apparently Jesse Marsch has this sort of cohort of players who come up to him after games, and they have a little bit of a chat so they can drip feed Marsch's messages to the squad. The reason he does that is because he thinks that there's leaders in the changing rooms who may have a better relationship with the players that have been there for a while now, and they're able to convey his messages a little bit more accurately, and the relationship with Marsch will come in time. And it's quite an interesting strategy from Marsch, because it's almost having some lieutenants just below him who can send off that message and make sure everybody's doing the correct things at the correct time. And that is vitally important, really, because it is an organisation as such within this squad. And I think it was fascinating to hear that of the players that are in this organisation. So it's Liam Cooper, Luke Ayling, Adam Forshaw, Rodrigo, Kalvin Phillips, Stuart Dallas, and Patrick Bamford. So 7 players there, and you get sort of an indication who the leaders are in the squad and who the players are who wear the trousers, as you will. So the dynamic, he said, I'm trying to get the whole team to know me, but it's important for them to have the finger on the pulse of who I am, and I think that's exactly what I'm talking to. So big news as well. We've not spoken about the team news yet. It looks like Kalvin Phillips is going to be back in contention, which none of us expected. Patrick Bamford looks like he's going to be fit for this one. Whether or not it'll be 45 minutes or not this time, we don't know. He was blowing at the end of that Norwich game by all accounts. So, after the 45th minute, hence why he was substituted. So Bamford, keep an eye on that one. Looks like Rodrigo's going to be fit, pending on training today if he comes through that. Liam Cooper's available for selection as well. Looks like Shaq's out. Looks like Lewis Bates out. And looks like Joe Gelhardt vitally picked up a little bit of a back injury. So it looks like he's going to be out for this. Very, very poignant, obviously, because Joe Gelhardt was the difference maker breaking down a absolutely dogged Wolverhampton Wanderers defence last time when he got the ball from deep and drove at Wolverhampton. So yeah, that's definitely something to keep an eye on. And the big thing was he was asked if he's tempted to play either of them tomorrow, which I thought was interesting. It'll be the same as we handled Patrick. We'll make a plan. And we'll stick to the plan. And the worst thing we can do in this moment is to have any kind of setback. So we're I'm very disciplined when it comes to how we manage the players physically. That is something of the utmost important. And this is the thing, isn't it? It's going to be a huge task for Jesse Marsch now in terms of what he does. Is he going to start Kalvin Phillips? Leeds need to start picking up points, everybody, very quickly. We are on a momentum charge right now. Losing against Wolves, whilst it's very likely, when you look at the position Wolves are in, when you look at the caliber of player that they have, the momentum they're on, trying to vie for top 6 or even maybe top 4 if they're pushing, keeping that momentum for Leeds United is going to be very difficult. Going up against a Norwich City side with the greatest of respect is going to be something, it's completely different to going up against the Wolverhampton Wanderers side. Every Wolves player is better than every single Norwich City player when you comparing in the respective positions. So this is a completely different task. There is an argument that all their players are better than our players as well. So, when you've got unbelievable operators in the middle like João Moutinho, Ruben Neves, it's going to be an uphill task for Leeds. And I think Jesse understands that. So what's the strategy? Is it to throw Kalvin in now? Is it to throw Liam in now? Is it to even give Patrick Bamford a full 90 minutes? Or is it to keep them in reserve, wait for the international break to finish, and then deploy all these players for the Brighton game, for the Southampton game, for the Watford game, so they're spring chickens and they're ready for it? What on earth would you do? Let me know in the comment section below. And, Jesse had also said that Kalvin had an unbelievable training session yesterday, so he's clearly back on it. Jesse will see that he's above the rest in terms of caliber of player as well. Probably just lower to Rafinha, really, in that squad setup. So he knows how good Kalvin is by the training sessions, but he said he had an unbelievable training session yesterday. So will that play into the thinking, and is that a risk for Jesse Marsch for this one? So this is interesting as well. Obviously, Kalvin's going to be playing in the double pivot. Now, what I will say is I think Matthias Klick has been revitalised in this position. I think he looks extremely good with just someone next to him. I've said this to my dad, I've said this to a couple of people, that I think Matthias Klick is one of the players who've actually thrived in this system. I don't think he thrived in that Bielsa system. I was a heavy critic of him. I think he got gobbled up in that 8 position because there was an attacking onus on him, but the defensive onus was as imperative. And I just don't think he's got the physicality to be able to deal with that. I think this role almost enables Matthias to get the ball and move through the transitions, move forward, play sort of a deep line playmaker role, which I think he thrives under. I think Adam Forshaw, sometimes in possession in this system, I noticed at the weekend as well, he's a little bit pedestrian, and he's all about retaining possession. He's all about moving the ball side to side, maybe back to Illan Meslier, maybe back to Llorente, back to Pascal Strout, keeping momentum, keep the ball moving. But what Jesse Marsch wants in his system is an aggressive lateral, vertical play through the middle of the park. That's what he wants. He wants it quickly. He wants it aggressively. So it's essentially one touch bang, 1 or 2 touch bang maximum, not 3, 4, 5 touches, then back to Strout, because it kills the whole momentum. It kills the whole momentum of what we're trying to do and what we're trying to build. So Matthias Klick has actually been very good in this system because he is that player who gets the ball and he rarely does go side to side. And that's where the criticism for Klick has come previously from people like myself, because when he goes forward, sometimes he doesn't need to go forward, but that is what's required of him in this system, and it seems to be working. It seems to be really working for whatever reason. So there you go. His ability on the ball has been very good. So taking him out is, if Kalvin is available, that's massive. That is a really big one. And it's definitely between, when you're looking at merit right now, you've got to keep Klick in there. So for me, Forshaw probably falls out if Kalvin comes in, which is it's a good position to be in. So yeah, he was essentially talking about the European Championships and obviously him playing alongside Declan Rice. I hope so. That'll be the goal by playing in, in this role that Marsch is going to have for him. As good as he is, I think he has room as a leader to grow. I think room with intensity and being aggressive against the ball, and then use his quality So yeah, I mean, that'll certainly be the goal. So once again, talking about him being a captain, really, when paraphrasing there, when he's talking about him being a leader, Leeds lad, he's clearly come in and thought that Marsh. He's mentioned it several times. Very interesting, very, very interesting. So yeah, that's one thing I found very interesting. I keep saying interesting, fascinating, I'll say. What else have we got in here? Yeah, this is another big thing as well, which I think Leeds fans will love. So someone like Kalvin Phillips coming into this relegation battle is perfect. We saw towards the back end of last season when Leeds won 7 out of 10 games, Kalvin, for me, was the best player. You had Diego Llorente up there who came into the side and was absolutely essential in what we were doing. He's a big boost. But Kalvin, you look at some of those games, Man United sticks out when he completely man-marked. He man-marked Bruno Fernandes out the game. Kevin De Bruyne at Man City away. He was absolutely phenomenal in big games, was Kalvin Phillips. So him coming into a relegation dogfight where he's just going to get in the trenches and dig deep, Kalvin, and he's got the quality as well to be able to really help himself in this system. You forget he's played in the 6 role before next to Declan Rice as well for England. So the huge benefits. Yeah, I mean, even when I first came, I knew that getting the 3 main guys back to full health was going to dictate our success. We have a good group, but you need your best players on the pitch, which is obviously logical. Is it important because he's local? Yeah, 100%. Of course it is. I think we all know that. If we all had that Leeds shirt on, we'd be the exact same. So yeah, and what I want to do, guys, is just show you something. If you don't follow me already on Twitter, make sure you do so. I'm just going to share something, and this is from sort of a Wolves perspective on exactly. I just did a bit of research earlier on, and this is something worth keeping an eye on. So in terms of StatsBomb, who are a really good stats-based site who offer various things on quantitative measures on how football is played. Make sure you go check it out. I noticed something earlier on about the switches of play, and StatsBomb had done something about the switches of play. Now, Billy Gilmore sits at the top, and you look at Leeds now, right? Leeds are playing a narrow system, a really, really narrow system. So if you're playing narrowly, what Villa did was they exposed Leeds out wide. You see Manchester City doing it all the time, make the pitch as wide as possible. Villa made the pitch as wide as possible. Luca Dean, Matty Cash made it wide. Leeds were narrow. We got exposed out wide. You saw that especially with Matty Cash's goal, the second goal. So I didn't understand why Norwich didn't do that, to be quite honest with you. I did think that Leeds played a little bit wider. You saw that in the first half. You saw that in the second half, in my opinion, a little bit wider. Leeds almost changed into a 4-2-3-1, which helped us defensively and offensively. It's going to be interesting to see what Wolves do here. Really interesting. And Billy Gilmore is the top, if you can see, of this list. I'll just zoom in for you here. Billy Gilmore is the top of this list. And what this is it's the switches of play. The switches of play. So getting the ball in the middle, switching it across to the left back, the left winger, the right back, the right winger. Now look who is number 4. It's Ruben Neves. Now, this could be a huge problem for Leeds. And the reason it could be a huge problem for Leeds is because Ruben Neves is a top-class operator, one of the best midfielders in the Premier League. And Wolves do play with wing-backs. You saw Aston Villa change into that wing-back role. This is how Wolves play. So you're going to get Marcel, you're going to get Johnny playing on those sides, and they're going to be looking to bomb forward. And then they're going to have the 3 at the back in Max Kilman, Romain Saiz, and Connor Cody, just to cover them, just to cover that full-back region. So it's going to be interesting to see how Jesse Marsh figures that one out, and that's going to be something that's definitely going to pique my interest. Now, the reason I wanted to look at this one as well is because of this. Now, we know that Jesse Marsh plays very, very similarly to what Ralph Rangnick does at Manchester United. They've got a very close relationship. Obviously, they've worked with each other. And as you can see here, if we are playing the 4-2-2-2 narrow system, this is what Ralph Rangnick was doing at the start. It did not work for several reasons, but it did not work with this Manchester United setup. So he is sort of converted to a 4-2-3-1, which was interesting at the weekend because Marsh did the exact same. Now, what Wolves did here was they utilised the wing-backs, and look, they played the 4-2-2 narrow system, and Semedo and Marcel were absolutely brilliant that game. Podence as well, and Trincao were spreading themselves out wide, and Manchester United really, really struggled to deal with it, and Wolves ran out 1-0 winners. So yeah, definitely something to keep an eye on. If Leeds are that narrow, you do feel that Wolves are going to take up that same blueprint that Villa did and potentially do it more effectively, because that's how they naturally play. Tim Spires as well, a Wolverhampton Wanderers correspondent, has said that Large was disappointed with the performance. Large was disappointed with the performance at Leeds. Ditto Palace away. Wants lessons to be learned. They're hard. They run a lot. They press high. Need to understand the system. 4 amazing strikers. I know some of them. And I think this was an interesting takeaway, really, because I felt that, at that game at Ellen Road, I was there myself, and I could not believe they didn't press on the neck. They were 1-0 up. Hwang had scored, and they were having a little bit of joy. But Wolves suddenly went into a defensive setup for like the last 60 minutes, and I didn't understand it. So it's going to be fascinating to see whether or not now Lage is just going to press on the action, and whether or not that's going to be advantageous for Leeds, we'll have to wait and see. But other things that Lage has said from his press conference are top 4 targets, which we're not interested in because we're nowhere near. But yeah, the big injuries out, Semedo, Hover, and Neto. So Neto and Semedo. Semedo played against us last time, I believe, and is the reason Johnny's getting lots of starts. Neto being absent from this one is big as well, because he's a top operator, and I think he'd caused a lot of problems. Adama Traore not playing, thank God. So you might be looking at Pedence, you might be looking at Trincao, but Wolves have players all over the pitch, guys. So make your own assessments of that. Hope you've enjoyed it, guys. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'm going to go, I've said it already, but I'm going to go for a 1-1 positivity, Connor. But yeah,